Earlier this week, a series of news articles appeared online about a programme claiming to have found King Alfred the Great's remains under a car park. As a qualified archaeologist with a keen interest in the matter, I thought I'd take a look. It sounded far too good to be true. After all, we all remember Richard III. Is it possible that two English monarchs could be found under car parks? As it turns out, no, it's not. Let's start with King Alfred the Great. Alfred was an Anglo-Saxon king of Wessex, often cited as the first king of the English, who was notorious for his wars against the Viking invaders of England, earning him the title the Great. Alfred died in October 899 at his capital, the city of Winchester in Hampshire. He was initially buried at the Old Minster, one of the two major Anglo-Saxon churches in the centre of the city. After just 4 years, Alfred's son, King Edward, had his remains moved into the neighbouring New Minster. The Norman conquest in 1066 saw the New Minster demolished to make way for the Norman cathedral that stands today, and the monks moved Alfred, his wife Elswith, and his son King Edward the Elder to Hyde Abbey, just north of the city walls, and reinterred them before the high altar. Roughly 500 years later, Hyde Abbey was dissolved during the Reformation, resulting in the complex falling into ruin, but as far as we know, the burials at the high altar remained undisturbed. In 1788, a new prison was being constructed on the site of Hyde Abbey, with the foundations themselves dug by convicts. Antiquarians who visited the site, and eyewitness testimony, all point to the prisoners discovering 3 lead coffins during their work, opening them and scattering the bones that were within, and selling the lead. Captain Henry Howard visited the site 10 years later, and heard from the prison wardens what had been found during the construction of the prison. He created a sketch plan of the structure as best as he could, but warned readers not to expect great accuracy, as the plan and the measurements taken are solely by stepping the ground in different directions, and are taken without instruments or chain. In 1849, the prison was closed and demolished, and the area was developed into housing. In 1866, an antiquarian called John Mellor claimed to have found the bones of Alfred and his family, and had them reburied in a nearby churchyard. In 2013, archaeologists from the University of Winchester exhumed those remains and carbon dated them, but they all came back as Norman at the earliest and Tudor at the latest. During this investigation, the university archaeologists came across records of a community excavation at Hyde in the 1990s, and decided to assess the finds from this dig as well. One single fragment of pelvis was noted, found near the location of the high altar, in an area disturbed by Victorian excavation. It was carbon dated to between 895 and 1017, and analysis revealed that it belonged to a male, between the ages of 26 and over 45 at the time of his death. Considering there are no records of any other Anglo-Saxon era burials in the area of Hyde Abbey, it is highly likely that this belongs to Alfred, or at least his son Edward. The AI-generated visual filled segment on Alfred begins with Graham Phillips, author and historical detective, claiming that the area around the altar was excavated by the university in 1999, which is not the case. The excavation was led by the Winchester Museum Service. He also claims that there were no bones found during this excavation, despite the Anglo-Saxon pelvis fragment being widely known about. Phillips goes on to claim that when Henry Howard interviewed the prison governor, he was told that the prisoners had found Alfred's remains when landscaping the garden, presenting the possibly inaccurate plan we referenced earlier. He explains that Alfred's tomb, along with his wife and son, were found in a place where they are marked today, but for some reason, which could be the fault of the editors or the TV people, the video cuts to Phillips pointing to another point on the map, claiming that that is the location of Alfred's remains instead. So let's look at the Henry Howard map ourselves to understand what he's talking about. He correctly identifies where the presenter is stood as the location of the high altar and the burials, as written by Howard and recognised by the modern memorial to Alfred today. He then points at the letter S on the map, and waves off behind the camera, claiming, "No one has ever dug there since looking for any remains, and it appears to me, strangely enough, that the remains of Alfred are under a car park." He's partly right. According to Howard's plan, the place is under a modern car park. but Phillips doesn't provide any reasoning at all for this thought process regarding Alfred. When looking at the map, S is clearly identified as the vestry of the Abbey, and there's no reason why Alfred would be buried there, especially considering we already have evidence for him being buried before the high altar. I decided to look outside of the episode for an answer as to why he believed this, and I found some news articles where Phillips makes some troubling claims. He states that he is convinced that the original bones were moved at the time of the prison's construction. But why? The article goes on. And it was while Phillips was searching for a copy of that plan in the archives of Cambridge University that he made what he describes as an astonishing discovery. Graham adds, Howard had written an article about Hyde Abbey published in Volume 13 of Archaeologia, the journal of the London Society of Antiquaries, in 1800. In it, he refers to prisoners employed to landscape the warden's new garden, unearthing bones which were reburied nearby, even including a map. So, finally, we have an answer. Howard's article in Archaeologia. But there's a problem. You don't have to search the archives of Cambridge University to find it. The complete article has been scanned and uploaded to the web archive. And in it, there's not a single reference to any bones being reburied at the vestry. In fact, Howard specifically states that he believed the 3 coffins found at the high altar were those of Alfred, Edward, and Aylesworth. So that's it. Phillips is either mistaken or has completely made it up. Not what you'd expect from a published author or historical detective, is it? Well, unfortunately it is. You don't have to look further than Phillips' Wikipedia page and his list of publications to realise that he might specialise in content that isn't exactly academic. He has, after all, claimed to have found the Holy Grail, Camelot, King Arthur, Mount Sinai, the Staff of Moses, and the grave of the Virgin Mary in Wales. So I think it's no wonder that the university in Winchester has snubbed his team's request for a bunch of students to scan the ground. And I think it's also fair to say that though Alfred's bones likely remain scattered and lost, we are lucky enough to have at least one single fragment that could very well be his.